Hey everyone, Matt here from Docs Running, and today we're going to do a comparison review, or should I upgrade episode, on the Adidas Adizero Adios Pro Series, specifically the older version 3 now, compared to the new version 4. So this is Adidas's super racing shoe line. It's been around for a couple years now. I've run in every iteration. Version 3 was a really great shoe. I feel like it wasn't nearly as fast as some of the other version, but really had some good versatility for going into easier paces, and I feel like kind of like it was like the People's Racer, where it just had a little bit more stability or guidance, I should say, because of the inherent stiffness from the rods. I kind of struggled to get this to go a little bit faster, but it was really comfortable and used it for a lot of different runs. This is actually my second pair that I have 150 miles on. Version 4, while these might look similar, is very different and will work for a very different group of people, in my opinion. So the purpose of this episode is to help you figure out, hey, if you have version 3, should you consider going up to version 4, or should you stick with version 3? Or if you haven't tried these and you are interested, which one of these might be a better option for you? So let's start with specs, as we do always. So men's size 10, which is my size and how I've measured these individually. The version 3 we'll do first comes in at 8.5 ounces, or about 240 grams in my size 10, and version 4 comes in much lighter at 7.6 ounces, or about 216 grams in my size 10. So fairly large weight decrease, despite the fact that they actually have a fairly similar stack height of 39 millimeters in the heel, 33 in the forefoot for a 6 millimeter drop. Originally, I was under the impression this was 39.5 over here, but apparently I was wrong. It's actually both 39 millimeters and 33. So same stack height, but foam is where things are really, really different. So both of them say Light Strike Pro, but we know, the more I've learned, that just hearing a name of a foam doesn't tell you at all about what the properties are. So version 3 was a teeny bit on the firmer side, I think because the rods were so stiff. It wasn't the bounciest ride on the market, but it still had some bounce and was really, really comfortable. Version 4 feels like it's much higher stack height. There's a lot more bounce to the midsole. The transition obviously is kind of one of the big points that they moved the forefoot rocker back a little bit, and it just transitions really early and really aggressively. So the overall ride feels way bouncier and way more aggressive in version 4, and version 3 feels a little bit more controlled over here. And that's kind of why, purpose-wise, they feel very different. So version 3, I had really struggled to get to go faster than half to full marathon pace. Like 5K, 10K pace just did not agree with me. It was great, though, for easier runs and long runs, which I did a ton of in this. It didn't feel like it was too aggressive for a super shoe, but also gave me plenty of like cushioning, bounce, stuff to be able to get some longer effort, especially at up-tempo paces. Version 4 is really different, where it feels really aggressive, and when you open your stride up, that's where this forefoot really comes into play, and I found that getting down to those 5K, 10K paces actually felt totally fine. And it really bounces and pushes you forward. As I said, I went out a little bit too hard on that second tempo of that day, and I was still able to hold things together and open my stride up and kept a pretty consistent pace despite some fatigue. So way bouncier, way more aggressive, and way more lighter feeling than version 3, but more aggressive. And that aggressiveness also comes into the fact that it doesn't feel as stable as version 3. And it's not because there aren't any rods here. They still have the energy rods going through here, which you can see below. But what's different is because there's so much bounce, the stiffness of the rods are muted just a little bit, where these are really apparent, especially side to side. This one, not so much. The posterior lateral flare is still there, so there is some lateral bias at the heel. So those people that want that, to create some like pseudo support in the heel, you're gonna still like this shoe a lot. The midfoot, though, because the stiffness is a little bit decreased, feels way less stable in version 4. So I really noticed the gap here at the midfoot and felt like I was coming over the medial side. If you don't have any stability issues there, you're not going to care. I didn't notice that as much, despite obviously the large cutout here in version 3, because the rods were so stiff and the sole wasn't as bouncy. So if you need more kind of midfoot guidance from stiffness, version 3 is going to be better. If you don't care about that, version 4 is going to be better. In the forefoot, both of them still have, what if you can see this, lateral guidance on both in the forefoot. So they're really large forefoot flare here, which is a little bit more apparent in version 4, really pushes you to the outside, which actually feels great as someone who needs a little forefoot stability. If you are sensitive to getting pushed to the outside on the forefoot, version 3 is a teeny better. It's still there, but version 4 really emphasizes, especially with the softer foam, that compresses a lot more. So lateral guidance in or lateral push in the forefoot and heel, but a big collapse in the midfoot in version 4. It was not as apparent in version 3. I feel like version 3 was just a little bit more centered overall, which again, that stiffness was the major factor, which is now traded for a much softer and bouncier ride, which again, goes a lot faster, in my opinion, but just not as versatile into slower stuff as version 3 was. So if you want faster here, if you want more controlled, a little bit better at those slower paces, version 3 is going to be much, much better for you. But I'm still enjoying version 4. The other thing that's really different is traction. I felt like traction was super average on version 3. I would never consider using it on anything but softer surfaces. There's actually really good traction on version 4. Like, it's noticeable. We've had some significant rain the last day or so, and even on wet pavement, this stuff grips really, really well. It's really easy. If you land, you toe off. It's really easy to grip and pull. I didn't feel like that was the case, and I will say with the Adios Pro 3, as you get over that 100-mile mark, traction gets worse, and I didn't kind of noticed that until I got like 120, 130, and the sole really smooths out and it's a little bit slippery. I don't see this being a problem, but I will get 100 miles on these and report back. Durability also seems to be good so far at about almost 20 miles. I haven't ripped anything off, which is great, but obviously I'll get more miles and see how that goes. Now, upper fit is also pretty different, where there was this kind of like knit mesh, not knit, but like very like there's see-through mesh here. There was a teeny bit like thick because it did give you a lot of structure to the upper. A lot of people still feel like this is like almost slightly long. That issue was fixed here almost to the point where I might consider, if some of you are between sizes, go up a half size here. Now, the light lock upper is very light. It's super thin, locks the foot down really, really well. It is slightly snug, slightly wide in the forefoot for any kind of racing shoe in the original version, but version 4 is definitely a little bit snug throughout the length of the shoe, and the volume is also much lower at the forefoot. This little toe guard here definitely was putting some pressure on my big toe, which I did not have here. This one felt very true to size, plenty of room, no issues with that, but there's a little bit more stiffness and structure throughout. This is much lighter, but that toe guard put a little more pressure. After 20 miles, that's broken in really nicely, but I personally wouldn't take this for a marathon unless I had thinner socks or maybe a half size up. So if you're between sizes and you notice that toe guard, think about going up a half size. If you're not, or you don't want to worry about that, version 3 might be better just because the structure's a little bit better. But if you have heel sensitivities, this heel is awesome. There's really no structure here. There was a little bit of stiffness in version 3, not so much here. So if you have a Hagman deformity, which I do, or you have a sensitive heel that's really sensitive to heel counters, version 4 is even better. Whereas if you just want a little more structure, version 3 is going to be the better option. So slightly more snug, slightly lower volume, locks the foot down a little bit more aggressively. Version 3 there's a little bit more structure here, but it just gave you a little bit more room throughout. So which one you want is going to totally depend on you. So overall, I feel like version 4 is more of the aggressive super shoe out there. It's going to work better for faster individuals, people that have really long stride that can open up their hips and really toe off really hard. I feel like version 3 is the more kind of every person shoe, where this can actually work for a lot of different people, and I'm less concerned about how aggressive it is as a super shoe. It does really, really well on long runs, even at easier paces. Even at easy runs, this is a decent option for people that want something that can do a lot of things and not just be focused on what kind of one pace or one specific type of thing, like a workout thing. Version 4 is more the workout shoe. It feels more awkward at easy paces, but feels like it really opens up at faster paces, especially, again, if you're really rolling through. So it's definitely an interesting thing. Same price, to my understanding, coming out really soon. Just saw it at the Berlin Marathon. But I'm really curious below, if any of you have both of these, or if any of you have version 3 or curious in version 4, A, first of all, what questions you have, and B, if you have version 4, what do you agree with me or you disagree with me? I really want to know, because like I said, they look somewhat similar, but perform very differently. I want to know if it's just me, or if anybody has any additional stuff to add that might help people that are watching this video or reading any of our stuff. As always, I hope this helps you make some good decisions, and hope this content is really good for you and helps you figure out whether these are actually going to work for you or maybe not.